Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 10, Episode 65. He's Dave Bryan, Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for joining us this Monday. Steelers Nation and Wildcard weekend has concluded, Dave. Very weird not to see the Steelers in it, but unfortunately, I guess this is 2 years in a row. Steelers have been sitting home during the first week of the playoffs, and that's obviously a disappointing feeling.
Yeah, absolutely, and it looked like, some entertaining games, really all four of them, I thought. Some, of course, better played than others. But look, no team hit the 30 mark, and let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the 8 teams scored 20 or less points. So defense definitely played a big factor in all four of these games. And like it or not, I think we're set up to see some pretty decent games in the divisional round of the playoffs. And not a good weekend to be a 40 or I guess 40 is not the new 30 anymore when it comes to the quarterback position. Definitely not a good week to be a 40 or over quarterback. And my the two teams that I picked to square off in the Super Bowl are already out in the New Orleans Saints and the New England Patriots. Both of those teams bowing out in the wild card round. I really thought both those teams had what it takes to go the distance there, but get knocked off by 6 seeds. So basically you look back at what happened over the weekend: 2 6 seeds in, 1 5th seed in, and to circle this back to kind of the Steelers, makes you kind of wonder now at this point, had they even gotten in, let's say with Mason Rudolph, the way their defense has been playing all year, would they have had a shot to maybe upset the Patriots this weekend?
Yeah, with how bad that offense looked. I don't want to make this Patriots depot, but what do you think Brady's future is? Because obviously we know the history between the Steelers and Brady and Belichick. For the first time in forever, we're talking about Brady's future. Is he going to retire? Is he going to go to a different team? Where do you think he ends up in 2020?
It's going to make nice off-season drama every week from here until whatever happens. But Romo throughout that whole broadcast, how much does Tony Romo know? I don't know. He keeps saying, he kept letting on like he thinks he knows, but I don't think he really knows. And to be honest with you, I have a hard time imagining that was Tom Brady's last game, A, in the NFL, or A, in with the Patriots, and B, in the NFL. Sure, he's not on a contract right now, but look, I don't think it's going to matter unless they find Tom Brady another Gronk, right, and about 2 more receivers. And let's face it, if there's one thing, look, Bill Belichick is a great coach. Nobody's going to deny that whatsoever. A lot of times, although he did get a dose of chess versus chess this weekend when going against Mike Vrabel instead of playing, another head coach going chess on checkers. But if there's one thing that the Patriots have had problems with over the years, it's drafting wide receivers. Usually you have the annual throw 18 of them up against the wall, see how many sticks in February and March, and then kind of go from there. Now, I did listen to just a tiny sliver of their kind of post-game show that they have on the actual team website and all, and you could have followed that. And I think you can go back and rewatch it even probably on their Periscope or Twitter channel there. But boy, those 4 guys of sports DJs that were sitting there at that round table all talking about it kept thinking, well, Tom comes back, he's going to have to be the Tom of 2007, basically, and not be so hard on these wide receivers, and lower the standards, so to speak, there. And I kind of got a chuckle out of that. The thing that's kind of made the Patriots and made Tom Brady be able to stay around the league so long is just the precision and everything that goes along with that offense. And then when you throw in the fact that they might lose your offensive coordinator this week at McDaniel, this offseason in McDaniels, that's something else they're going to have to overcome here. So is the dynasty dead? Well, going to be interesting. A, they're going to have a large portion of that defense back, and B, they're going to have to get Brady back. And even if they get Brady back, will they have the weapons, enough weapons to surround them to make that offense potent enough like it was a few years ago? So I guess that's a long answer to saying I don't think Tom Brady's done in New England. I think he's going to be back. It's just a matter of the minutia that goes in, into everything to getting him back. But I'll be shocked if that's the end of him in New England.
I'm with you. I think it's like 99% chance he's in the NFL in some capacity in 2020. I don't think he's going to go out like that. He's a super competitive guy who wants to play till he's 45. I think the more interesting question is where he ends up, but I think he will be back with the Patriots for at least one more year, one more run at it. But I'm with you. They have to draft some more receivers. They got to give him more weapons. But it is funny. I didn't hear those comments on that show, but the idea of lowering the standard in New England has not been a phrase used with that team since this dynasty began. So I'm with you. I think Brady's a Patriot in 2020.
And look, I imagine they inferred a couple of times that young guys come in or new guys come in, and if they don't get it right away, Tom basically shuns them. And I can imagine that happen. Tom is a precision guy, and that is what has made that offense work for so long. Him knowing exactly where his receivers are, and if there's one other kind of takeaway that I got from this entire weekend, I tried to pay as close of attention as I could to two elements this weekend: the quarterback play, and the ability of quarterback. We'll talk about this a little bit more in depth. Quarterback's ability to extend plays, and then the overall running game. Okay, because definitely when you look at how the Titans beat the Patriots and all, that seems to be a popular topic on this Monday for sure. But Tom, at his age, and really, he's never been the most nimble quarterbacks anyway. But if you don't have things in position, and if the way to beat them is to force Tom Brady to extend the play. Because he just he likes to move in that small phone booth inside the pocket, and still nobody probably does it better than he does. But when the wide receivers still aren't getting open, when he buys that extra second and a quarter, if you will, things don't go well for him, and there are only so many dump off passes they can do, and only so many stretch runs and wheel routes they can run along the way there. So it looked like Tom Brady aged in a matter of a couple of weeks here, because you look at the way they close out the season. Boy, they had a golden opportunity had they won their regular season finale to have a bye, right? Right. And what did they end up going in their final 5 games of the season? 3 or 2 and 3. So if I guess I should have seen the signs that the Death Star was about to explode there.
Yeah, I'm not going to call the dynasty dead, because I know media's tried to bury them time and time again, and they just come back stronger. But obviously, there's more questions heading in this offseason than probably ever before. To kind of pull back and just look at the position more broadly, and you just kind of teased it a second ago, Dave, about mobility with quarterback play. I think we've kind of talked about that before. I know you've talked about that plenty, about the lack of extending the play. In the playoffs, we saw guys like Taysom Hill and Ryan Tannehill and Deshaun Watson. Watson obviously made that spectacular play because of his mobility. Do you think that that's becoming a more increasingly important attribute in the college game, and to find quarterbacks in the NFL that can be successful, or guys who, I don't want to say have to be mobile, but have to at least have some ability to extend the play?
I don't know if it's just because I have more of a focus on it now because of what happened, this past season. With the Steelers obviously not having Ben Roethlisberger, and obviously that's been one of the traits of his, but it has stuck out to me a lot more this season, more so than any others. And really, I'm really starting to not that I'm going to go head over heels in evaluating quarterbacks this offseason, because like it or not, I just don't think the Steelers are going to go down that road. But I think it is an element that I think really needs to be looked at in today's NFL, because everybody's fast now. There's athleticism all over the place, and I think if you have a quarterback that has the ability, look, I mean, obviously it's not the kind of thing that you want to happen 20 times a game, and it's probably going to be your downfall if it does. But there are key moments during games that if you have a quarterback that can extend a play and then create either a first down on third down or, an explosive play that winds up sort of game changing that we saw Watson do against the Bills the other day. That make no mistake, that effectively that won the game. Right there. I think a lot of importance does need to be put on that now when evaluating quarterbacks, and you kind of go back now to that draft class a couple of years ago. Who were the quarterbacks? Mayfield, Darnold, Lamar Jackson,
right, Mahomes,
Josh Allen, and Josh Allen. And then, of course, Rudolph was the odd man out in the third round there. What are all those guys in that first round, for the most part, really, other than, I guess, maybe Darnold's not really known for it as much. All those other guys have the ability to extend plays, right?
Right, yeah. Has the attribute moved up the rank on the list of traits you would look for in a quarterback, or do you think it's just more heightened but hasn't moved up ahead of things like accuracy, arm strength, or however you order it?
Yeah, I don't know. Outside of just me, all I know is I have a more heightened awareness to this now. Now, and it doesn't mean that the NFL has it. Maybe that's one of the prime reasons that a guy like Mason Rudolph didn't go in the first round, because really, he extended, he extended some plays at Oklahoma State, okay? But that's not who he is. Or, that's definitely not a way the guy like a Josh Allen did, or obviously a Lamar Jackson. Really, I guess you could say Rudolph's more of a, I don't know, poor man's Sam Darnold. I mean, how much do you remember Darnold extending the play at USC?
Yeah, they're similar levels of mobility. Darnold's probably a little more mobile than Rudolph, but they're on a similar plane.
But then the other three, I mean, you agree that really are really have the mobility factors.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I mean, look, one of the things that makes Baker Mayfield so good, we saw it against the Steelers, in the first meeting between the two. You think you have him in there, and then you don't. He's outside the pocket making plays on third down or whatnot. I just think whether or not that's something that's going to become even more in vogue starting from this season on, I don't know. All I know is now is I appreciate. And due to the Steelers not having Roethlisberger this year, I have a lot more heightened awareness of it. And even trying to go back through my head, I threw this out on a Twitter machine, I think yesterday there. Yeah, how many times can you visually remember Rudolph or Devlin Hodges pulling off an extended play, big play this past season? Obviously, Hodges did it. We talked about in the game against Arizona on that third play. Fantastically done, as well. And obviously, Deontay Johnson did a great job of working his way back to the quarterback on that one. I think Mason Rudolph on the play that he got knocked out on.
Yeah, that's what I was going to go to.
Was a good example of that. But how many other times, and I'm making a mission to try to go back and try to look at some of these, but how many other times do you distinctly remember something like that happened with the Steelers quarterback this year?
It's not many. Those were honestly the only two that are coming to mind immediately. I'm sure there were a couple others, but there weren't many. And while Ben certainly has lost a lot of mobility, he's still capable of extending the play, unlike a lot of quarterbacks in football today.
Right. I think someone brought up one of those touchdowns against the Seahawks early in the season where Rudolph kind of held the football and then kind of
Vance. Is that the one to Vance?
Yeah, kind of 3/4 it or whatnot. I don't. I think of just play breaking down. When I talk about extended play, I'm talking about quarterback having to lead the pocket, getting over the 4 second mark there. That's kind of what I visualize what I visualized when extended play. Now, not all went great for Josh Allen in trying to do that this weekend either, right? Took a grounding, intentional grounding, and then really an unnecessary sack there on one of those. Sure, that's not going to work out all the time, but let me tell you, I got a lot of respect for that kid. The last couple of weeks here, because he is a big-bodied guy, kind of like Roethlisberger, a guy that has the ability to run with the football and kind of get guys off him and extend the play. If other areas of his game come around, well, there might be something to him.
What would your response be? And I don't like this argument too much because I think it's too low-hanging fruit, but I know it's going to be the obvious response from a lot of people. The idea of, okay, you want a running mobile quarterback, but now he's at risk of getting hit and getting hurt. Like a Lamar Jackson. That way I see those comments. Oh, wait till he gets hit in a couple of years. He's not going to have the speed anymore. Look at RG3. What would your response to those comments be?
I still don't think it's ideal what's going on with Lamar personally. I mean, I know he still hasn't really taken that hard hit or whatnot, but I mean,
does it scare you though? Whenever you would draft, if you were to draft a quarterback with more mobility, hypothetically, a year from now?
Yeah, I think I would be. I mean, look, Michael Vick had a great career, right? I mean, being able to do what he did with his feet, and obviously there's been several others along the way, and Lamar Jackson's, I think at some point a quarterback's going to have a quarterback's weaknesses are going to be exposed if teams can figure out how to make him throw the football. Now, if he's a dual threat where, man, we did all we could to keep him from running, but he still shredded us with his arm. And we've seen Jackson do that, but just not a lot during games. I mean, when he's only forced to throw 15 or 16 times, that's not a lot. The Titans were able to hide Tannehill this weekend, to limit his exposure on that. I just am not ready to accept that everybody's going to be going out to get themselves Lamar Jackson. And even if you tried, how many of those guys are of that quality?
Right.
I mean, Jackson, at least, to his credit, he flicks his wrist and that ball's 60 yards down the field. Kind of thing. I mean, the guy does have an arm to go along with it. It's just more aspect of him running the football has been teams focus so much on trying to defend that they get themselves in problems in the secondary, and he's able to take advantage of it, especially in the red zone in those situations because teams are so focused on the run aspect. So, I mean, you have to look at what Lamar Jackson's done and still admire it this season. I'm not to the point where I'm convinced that needs to be a long-term trend in the NFL.
Well, even just in terms of greater mobility and mobile quarterbacks, do you think the Steelers would be open to that with this current coaching staff? Because obviously with the quarterbacks they've drafted, guys like Mason Rudolph, Landry Jones in recent years have been far from fleet of foot. So do you think that's a philosophical issue, or do you think the team just chose those quarterbacks because they just thought that Landry and Mason were the best guys on the board at the time? I know it's a difficult question.
Yeah.
No idea, you can't be in their head, but I just wonder, if you think that they prefer the in the pocket quarterback.
I mean, this is the same organization that had Slash, right? I mean,
right.
But I don't know how to answer that really, Alex. I mean,
this is also what drafted Dennis Dixon, and they've had some mobile quarterbacks. But I just curious to get your thoughts.
I don't think they're opposed to it. I mean, if the next Lamar Jackson was there, those kind of guys you normally, like any good quarterback, normally going to get them in the first round, right?
Right.
But I don't think they would be opposed to. I just am. I mean. Are we still going to be talking about Lamar Jackson 3 years from now?
I think we will.
With him being considered one of the league's top quarterbacks.
Yeah, I still think so. And I know that everyone talk about the injury factor, but look what happened to Steelers this year. Mason Rudolph got banged up so much from stuff in the pocket. Ben got hurt throwing the football. Quarterbacks can get hurt in a variety of different ways, and I can't have that scared mentality because, if you do that, then you just can't play anybody.
Well, then you have guys like Carson Wentz, who's since day one when he takes off with the football, you wonder, man, is that a smart decision with him? I mean, right out of the chute, I think in his kind of first preseason, he was taking unnecessary shots, along the sideline, trying to So I guess it all depends on the quarterback or whatnot. But I just have a hard time believing in today's NFL where speed usually balances everything else, everything out, and physicality, and that you're going to just start seeing 11 Lamar Jacksons in the league.
Right. No, I just think that type of guy is really hard to find. There's a lot of mobile quarterbacks in college, but there aren't a lot of good throwers in college. To find someone that has both aspects to his game is pretty rare. So, yeah, any other thoughts on Wildcard weekend, whether it was around the league or just from the games themselves? A lot of good games. First time in the NFL history you've had 2 overtime games in Wildcard weekend.
Yeah, once again, I think it goes back to quarterback play here. I think defense. I think we saw how defense can definitely help win you some games. Here, the Titans. I think the Titans are. And what they did with Derrick Henry is going to have a lot of focus, probably throughout talk, social media and talk radio or whatnot about, everybody now needs to find him a Derrick Henry.
Mm-hmm. That's probably a good segue actually into what you want to talk about today, kind of going position by position to kind of look at some draft needs, and we'll start with running back. I know it's a position that I think we're in agreement on in terms of a draft need. I know there are some fans that disagree and give us some blowback on that, but what is your overall take on how important the running back position is for the Steelers when it comes to maybe the draft plans?
Yeah, well, let's start that by talking about what do you think about the Titans and Derrick Henry? I mean, obviously that allowed them to do what they did. He wore the Patriots down.
Yeah, I mean, what Tannehill threw for what, 71, 72 yards? I mean, it's all run game.
And then, I think the other aspect to that, I mean, you're talking about a good this Patriots team. It is okay to look back at their schedule and say, well, look at kind of the cupcakes that they played, and how much did that lend into making that adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat of theirs have enough games in it that regardless of what a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick did at the end of the season to make it still look like a very, very good number. But when we did see, though, kind of the way that teams were able to win against New England, definitely Baltimore for sure, and then obviously Tennessee was be able to run the ball. Now, just running the ball is not enough. You have to run the ball effectively, and hell yeah, if you're getting 5 yards a carry, why the hell wouldn't you run it every time? I mean, it just seemed even in any situations. How many third and shorts did they convert Tennessee this past weekend by running the football?
Mm-hmm.
When you're able to do that and the other team can't stop it, hell yeah, you're going to run the football a lot more. But even so, how many Derrick Henrys are there? I mean, that guy's a thoroughbred horse when he's healthy and they block things up right. I mean, that guy cannot be stopped. And the age-old saying goes, if you gain 3 yards on every play, you'll never lose the game, right? But, running, it still doesn't change my thoughts on offensive philosophy. And that means that you have to be able to run the ball successfully more than, obviously if you run the ball successfully, you're going to run the ball more, right?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
All right, but even so, at some point you're going to have to throw throughout a 16-game season, and multiple games in the playoffs as well too. Now, does it hurt to have a back like him? Absolutely not. Did it hurt the Steelers to have a all-around back in Le'Veon Bell during his tenure in Pittsburgh? Absolutely not. With all that said, looking back at where the Steelers now kind of going. Did I miss anything there? I mean, feel free to add on with your thoughts about the running back position as a whole in the NFL before we talk about it.
No, I'm with you. I mean, I think obviously you want any elite player at any position that's going to help your team win, but also the running back, there have been so many just different guys that have popped up that it's hard to commit pain to the position because a guy like Duke Johnson's making big plays for Houston to close out that game. He's obviously not a premier back in the league, though somebody I've always liked and respected, and a guy that probably hasn't gotten the work that he deserves. But no, I'm basically with you. I try to look at it how it relates to the Steelers' current situation and say, do the Steelers need a guy like that, or do they have a guy like that, or can they be able to make it work with divisional labor that they're probably going to have in 2020?
I think they need, I think teams were able to focus more on the Steelers running game this year. One, defenses. Number two, we saw. Look, I mean, you got some guys that Ramon Foster was a weak link. I think in that offensive line this year. Alejandro Villanueva is never going to be viewed as a great run blocking tackle, but I think he's adequate enough there. The tight ends certainly didn't do this offense any favors, nor did the fact that they really didn't have a healthy Roosevelt Nix all year. And look around, how many of these teams over the weekend, Alex, had fullbacks?
That's a really good question. Yeah, the Vikings with C.J. Ham? I mean, that was huge. I'm trying to think of some of the other names that aren't springing.
The Saints use Hill various different ways. The Patriots obviously will have a big body back there sometimes. So I'm not saying you have to have a fullback back there, 40 plays a game. But I think the Steelers not having a healthy and Roosevelt Nix for 10 plays a game showed up at points during this year. And obviously, the tight ends, we've talked about that quite a bit as well too. I think you need and not just Zach Banner. I don't think you can bring Zach Banner in 50 times a game, that way, because I think that diminishes other things that you can do in the passing game. It pretty much screams everybody that you're going to run in a lot of those situations there. So circling this back, look, they got to. We talked about this the other day. They need to scheme up these runs better. I think a little bit, more outside zones, some stretch stuff would definitely help. And when you look at the stable of backs that they have now, kind of boiling this thing all the way back, you spent draft picks the last 3 drafts, right, on Connor, Jalen Samuels, and no, he's not a tight end, and Benny Snell Jr. And then now you picked up a guy that's going to be interesting, to see which way, how much there is with him in a guy like Kareth White, kind of a lightning to a thunder situation there. I believe they've got the running backs in place to do what they want to do. Now, obviously, if Connor can't stay healthy, that's a huge negative right there. But I mean, if there's one guy that ended a few guys that ended the season on a positive note, it was Benny Snell, right? And if had he stayed healthy during that stretch there, that he was out with a knee injury when unfortunately Connor went down, or Sammy, all of them were dinged up at one time there. Maybe you get a little bit more continuity than what you got in the running game there. But long story short, if they draft a running back this year and it's within the first 2 days, I mean, obviously they're not going to have a day 1 pick there. But if they draft one in the second or third round, I'm going to be disappointed there.
Yeah, just not super high on my list. I understand, obviously, Connor's health has been a huge issue. We talked about that you just can't give this guy an extension right now, or probably at all. But I think that Snell has shown he can be a workhorse back, and that kind of works with the Steelers' philosophy of preferring to have a lead type runner. Kareth White was super impressive, and I'm just really happy that White's on this team just to have that element, like you mentioned, lightning to the thunder, because for a couple of years now, and especially you go back to camp this year, all the backs that the Steelers had in Latrobe, and basically all the ones they carried in week 1, were 220-plus pound backs, whether you're talking Connor or Samuels or Snell. And you go back in camp with guys like Malik Williams and other names, Ralph Webb, another bigger body type back. So it's nice to have that different just style and kind of change-up type of back in the backfield that Kareth White offered. But, yeah, all these backs are going to be returning in 2020. And obviously, Connor, you want him to be the guy when he's healthy. I know health has been so fleeting. It's just hard to see how that running back, if you draft somebody in the 3rd round with that, say 3rd-round comp pick you're going to get for Le'Veon Bell, how they're going to fit into this equation and how they're going to make it work. Because the Steelers did not do a good job of really figuring out a rotation this year when they didn't have a lead guy. And I think adding another back to that mix, unless she's going to become the lead guy, is going to make the situation even more complicated.
If you can make Jalen Samuels become your Mewaldy Moore, okay, he's got to get a little bit better in pass protection still. Not surprising there. And and he did at certain points here, even non-Wildcat runs. Show us what was the game that you said? Well, I thought Jalen Samuels ran a little bit better than what he was. Was it the game against the Browns or
the second Cleveland game? I thought was his best game of the year.
Okay, that you need more kind of that stuff from him because he did have a few successful runs in there. I mean, obviously. You got to have the reps involved in that, but and I don't think it's healthy to have 4 backs shuffling in and out of there either. Mm-hmm. From a continuity standpoint and all like that. But I think if you could get maybe a 1-2 punch figured out, that would be better. I mean, I just fearful that you start the game with James Conner, you get six snaps out of him. In comes, I think we both agree that Benny Snell's the kind of guy that if you get him in the game early, he's kind of a guy that gets a little bit better as the game goes on.
Right.
With him, I mean, there you can look back at that 20-something yard run that he had against Baltimore. That was real trustworthy that hole was going to be there, right? On that run, because he gets that thing and he's here's the good thing about him is he's going to press that line, and really James Conner too. We see some good traits with James Conner being able to press the line and then get the linebacker or safety or whatever to commit and then cut inside or out. So I think they have talented guys there. It's just getting them healthy and learning how to use them and scheming them up properly.
Right, and even if you're a fan, you're listening, and you're disagreeing with us, and you're saying, well, I just don't trust Conner, and Snell's never going to be the guy, I'm going to steal your word here, the fungibility of the running back position, where you don't have to have...
We haven't used that word in a while.
I'm bringing it back here in 2020, because I think it's been proven by guys like Snell and Kareth White coming in basically off the practice squad of Chicago, that you don't have to invest so heavily in the position, that you can find a lot of guys, plug them in, and make them work if your scheme is sound, and your O-line is good, and you have a pass threat element to and all that stuff. So do you need to invest in a high pick and a running back in today's NFL? And of all the positions you would rank in terms of needing to invest a high pick in, running backs probably almost universally last on anyone's list.
Like I said, what does it show or mean if they draft one in the 3rd or 4th or even really a 5th round this year?
That's a good question. I don't know exactly where I come in on it, but I would almost say if they're going to draft a running back, it's like a quarterback. Either draft one super early and say this is our guy, or just don't draft one at all, because I don't know what a 6th-round pick is going to do unless he's going to offer something in the return game. But Kareth White can already do that. So, I don't know what it would say. I would just say that they want to keep adding bodies to it, and they can't trust Conner to stay healthy, and they want to have just as many options as possible for whenever he isn't available.
And to me, it screams that, we messed up on Benny Snell. All right, that's another wasted pick.
But I can't see that. I can't see that being their interpretation, because they seem to have Tomlin.
No. I mean, I don't either. But I'm just saying that's what it would feel like to me.
Right. Unless, what if it was like a Kareth White type of back, a speedster? Would that change your thought?
Well, but you got Kareth White now.
Yeah. So maybe it just says maybe we don't like Kareth White as much as
I mean, look, I still go back to the word you just used, Derrick Henry was great, but why did they use Derrick Henry and who was the other one they used alongside him? Dion, was it Lewis?
Dion Lewis. Yep.
Alongside with him. I think you can create a multi-backfield system. I mean, look, go back a couple years ago with Bettis and Parker and Mewaldy Moore. I think if you carve out roles and know everybody can execute when asked to do so, that's fine. But also, are Conner and Snell the same thing now? I mean, is this 2 Spider-Mans pointing at each other?
My other thought I was going to offer for the group is the Steelers do have to get out of this mold of drafting any running back who's 225 plus pounds. It's nice to have a couple of those guys. You can't have an entire running back room built of just those guys, and that's basically what's happened in Pittsburgh for the last several years now. Again, Gareth White offered a different element, and that was, I think, a bright spot. You saw the value in that and what he offered, be able to create some big runs. But you just can't have a backfield room of just Edmonds and Samuels and Connor and Snell, and everybody's just a big guy. I mean, you got to have some variety in that room. So if you do draft a running back, find someone that's a little bit smaller, a little more athletic, and can hopefully help you in the receiving game and the kick return game, etc.
Here's the thing too, man. What you want to talk about a position that gets nicked up,
right?
Even Le'Veon Bell. Look how many games Le'Veon Bell technically ended up missing, throughout his career in Pittsburgh.
How many was that? I mean, he missed half the year, obviously, with that MCL.
He missed, and then that for his rookie season, didn't he? His first game against like Minnesota in over in London or whatnot? Wasn't that week 4?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, he played 13 games his rookie year, played all 16 and 14, played 6 games in 2015, played 12 games in 2016, and missed the game in 2017. That might have been the rest game. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, missed a decent amount of time.
And then when you really needed him in the playoffs, All
right, remember that the Patriots game when he bowed out? He fought through it. A credit to him, but yeah, I mean that was he left him with the first drive that game and didn't come back.
And then didn't he have the hyperextended knee against the Bengals late in the season that caused him to miss the Ravens game? And the Ravens ended up having to have who was in the backfield?
Oh God, is that Ben Tate?
Ben Tate and Jeez. Who else? Do you remember?
Josh Harris. Right?
Yeah.
He's wow. Those are some names that.
When you look back, you figure, and you get on, you say, "Damn, Tomlin been sucking it up in the playoffs." You go back and look at some of these people on offense that he had. It makes you kind of wonder that game against Baltimore, the AFC Championship game a couple years ago against the Patriots, right? When look at your wide receivers in that game, and that was obviously the game that Bell bowed out early on in two there. No, I'm not giving the guy the pass because obviously then you have what had happened in Jacksonville, a couple years ago. But I think even though we had what happened with the Titans and Patriots this week, and we'll find out how effectively the Titans can continue hiding their quarterback and lean on their running backs and their defense moving forward here. But I think too much stock is being put. I'm with you. You better get the steal of the draft in either the first or second round. I think Barkley's a great player, but is he, when push comes to shove, is he going to be worth that first round draft pick?
Yeah, I mean,
is any running back worth a first round draft pick?
Right. Yeah, that's the big philosophical question, especially as high as Barkley went, or top 10. But so I think the league has been shifting more towards I will say, I know we're just starting our draft prep work, but I know this running back class is insanely good. So there will be value there for Pittsburgh, and that may compel them to make a move. I don't know, but I know this running back class is supposedly one of the best in a long time.
How many games has Barkley missed? 3 games, and he hasn't really been totally healthy both of his seasons, right? I mean, I know he played the 16 games his rookie season, only played 13 this past year. I mean, the guy's hugely talented, but is it enough?
Oh, obviously not to the Giants based on their offense. That's why they go out and get a quarterback, and obviously it comes down to quarterback versus running back. There's no debate what position's more valuable.
So I mean, look, I love runs. I love successful runs. But if you can't run successfully, you're beating your head up against the wall. And I'm circling back to what you said. You better, if you're going to take one, you're probably going to have to take one in the first or second round to find that next Le'Veon Bell, if you will. But really, how great was Le'Veon Bell? As a runner. Overall runner. When you look at his success rates over the last couple years, they weren't great. He obviously wasn't a big producer. And there's certain aspects of his game that can't be understated, like his pass protection and things like that. I mean, guy's obviously the top pass protector in the league. But how many explosive runs did this guy give you? Throughout his career. He was more dangerous in open space as a pass catcher, and that's something, being able to make the first guy miss. But we've seen Connor when Connor's healthy be able to do, I don't want to say the same things, but he's had some production as a pass catcher out of the backfield when he's healthy.
Yeah, no, Connor definitely, that was one of the biggest areas Connor improved from year 1 to year 2 was his versatility and work out of the backfield. With the Bell, the only knock on Bell I ever had was that he didn't have the big runs, and he's never been that guy. And his longest run for the Jets this year was 19 yards. I mean, that was the one element he didn't give you, but everything else about his game was to me elite.
Right, but I mean, still the successful run aspect, when it all boils down to successful runs, percentages, and those have decreased over. What did I have up on the Twitter machine? Over the last 3 years, successful run rates have decreased every year for the last 3 years. So, who's to blame there? Yeah,
it's hard to say. Obviously, I think all parties involved, but Bell's, Point taken on that. And speaking of Bell, I should just point this out. This is from the Cortez projection, just a projection, but he's usually the best in the business with this stuff. The Steelers are projected to get a third-round comp pick for Le'Veon Bell. Did we mention that on the previous show? I can't remember, but I will throw that back out there, that they're supposed to get a third-round comp for Bell.
And that's really what we've kind of been the understood since the whole Moncrief, thing. Really, even before that, because the only thing that got Moncrief into the equation was once L.J. Fort was cut loose from the Eagles and all like that. So, but yeah, that's not a surprise there. Now that's going to come at some point at the end of the third round too. So technically, how do you view that? Is that a late third round pick, or is it an early fourth round pick?
Yeah, it's fortunately
it's semantics, but
yeah, it's a late third, early fourth, and I think we did talk about that because I remember my bad math of me calling that the 60-something pick.
There you go. Now here's the thing. I mean, you're gonna. It goes back to what we're trying to do now, and for people probably saying, what the hell, why are they rambling about this? We're going to start going position group by position group here, and discussing, ahead of free agency, is this going to be a need in free agency, and or the draft? And obviously free agency will come before the draft. We just don't view this team as being one that's going to be hugely active at all in free agency, correct?
Yeah, they will have very little space to work with to make a move.
All right, so if that's the case, and most of this is going to be related to the draft, you don't have a first-round pick. Your second-round pick's like 49th overall, I think we determined. And then your third-round pick's going to be outside of 60 9, here you go, got me on the bad math. You. Outside of 90, 32, 64... outside of 96, right? So we're looking at somewhere probably realistically, I don't know, 97, 98, 99, 100, right around in there. So you better choose wisely.
And they have a lot of positions to address, and I think running back is just simply lower on that list for all the reasons we talked about.
So you would not be surprised if they don't draft a running back at all, correct?
As we sit here today, I'm not expecting it, but obviously if they start bringing in a bunch of running backs or pre-draft visits and all that stuff, we know the history there. My mind can change. So as of today, no, but obviously what the team does and who they bring in could change my opinion.
I'm with you too. And look, I know that the kid, and we have the national championship game tonight, right? Is it tonight or tomorrow?
Is it tonight? I haven't even. The Bachelor's. Is it tonight?
Oh, don't bring up the Bachelor.
The Bachelor, the season premiere is tonight, Dave. I know you got a DVR.
Yeah,
Pilot
wrong.
Pete.
No? Let's see here. Clemson. Yeah, you go ahead and watch that. I'll watch. I'll watch to see if Josh Burrow can get a rose. Joe Burrow can get a rose there. Should be an entertaining game tonight, right?
Yeah, I'll be watching the championship game. Maybe I'll tape the Bachelor. Okay. We'll see. I'll let you know though how that one turns out.
Yeah, please. I'll be waiting.
I'm sure with bated breath.
Yeah. But I mean, overall, that's our take on the running back back position until something changes right now. Now, yeah, I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about this overall, but and people will see the Etienne, is that his name, from Clemson?
Mm-hmm. Travis, yeah.
I'm sure they're going to be him and the Ohio State kid, and there are going to be a lot of people saying, "Oh, Steelers got to get him if he's there in the second," kind of talk there. But as we stand here right now, Alex and I, I think we'll be shocked if they get one in the first, but prior to round 5, and would right now be a little bit surprised they even draft a running back at all.
I'm not saying I would advocate for it, but I bet you're going to hear Jonathan Taylor from Wisconsin's name in Pittsburgh about 1 million times before the draft, just as a bigger, powerful Wisconsin type back.
Yeah, we'll probably and look. I'll look at him. I'll study him.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, we'll study most of these guys, but because that's what we do. But doesn't mean necessarily that we think that the Steelers are going to draft them.
All right, Dave. Transitioning here, I just want to do a brief overview of this rookie class, just some topic ideas, because now we're hitting the off season, kind of removed from the regular season finale, so we're just kind of getting into some off season talks. I just want to go through the draft picks one by one and just kind of give our initial evaluation on their performance. Devin Bush, obviously, I think had a really strong rookie year, was impactful early. I thought the biggest thing he showed was ability to learn from mistakes and improve and grow throughout the year. What is your take on Bush's rookie season?
Yeah, started off kind of, we saw, I think, right out of the chute why. We saw some instances with his ability to go sideline to sideline type stuff. I think he kind of, once teams, early on in the season, see how he reacted in zone and not having the experience in zone. I think if there was anything, there were two aspects. He tried to do too much at certain times during games, and tried to be Michigan's best player.
All right.
Because he could do that in Michigan.
It was weird though, because Michigan was a great defense. So I don't know why he had that different mentality coming over to the NFL.
Right, but I mean, there was you admit there were times, more times than not, especially around the middle of the season, where he would try to do too much, and it got him in trouble with gap with gap integrity.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah,
and we saw Ryan Shazier do this throughout, early in his career too. So I mean, that's not uncommon.
Yeah, you're right. Again, maybe it was just the expectations of a first-round pick, feeling like he needed to make every play, or just maybe the rookie mistakes. But yeah, there were times where he was doing too much.
All right, but if there's a positive to come out of the way the season ended, is the last few games. I thought he was. You broke down, I think, his Ravens game. I mean, just if there was a bright spot on the defensive side of the ball in that game, it was him. You know. Lot more trusting of the defense, a lot more understanding. This guy should grow exponentially, you would think, and he should probably have the green dot, and B, really, he should be a lot better and refined in all areas of his game. So I think we got a small glimpse of that, even in a kind of a negative, poorly played defensive game by the Steelers overall, of what this team has in Devin Bush.
Yep, they got a good one, and I'm going to do either an article or a video sometime in the future that breaks down some of those errors he made with his run fits and gap integrity earlier in the year, and how he finished out the year and improved along the way. I think the reasonable expectation is that he's going to be the guy in 2020. He's going to be the every down type of linebacker. Is that fair?
Oh, yeah, look, and I think you pointed out on one or two of those clips as well, too. One of the things of him in Michigan that was a little bit worrisome at time was him getting swallowed up at second level. And I think he's kind of, as the season progressed here, now he did have an instance or 3 or 4 of those throughout this season, but I think what we did see as the season progressed, and definitely in the finale there, is him, take better angles to make sure the offensive lineman didn't have a great chance of swallowing up, and B, him being able to shock back on a couple of them and get himself separated as well, too. So, who was the guy that I compared him to? What was his name prior to the draft?
Lions. Ernie Sims.
Yeah, I mean he that's him. It's him.
Yeah.
A little bit more athleticism there too. With him, a guy that you would expect to lead not only the Steelers in tackles, but maybe start leading the league in tackles here the next couple of years with him. Not a guy that's going to create probably a ton of negative plays for you, and that was one of the things I remember us having a 45-minute discussion on his lack of quote unquote playmaking. Things that actually show up in the box score with him. Outside of the obvious in tackles. And really, Sims was the same way throughout I think I pointed that out, throughout his college career and really on into his NFL career too. But there's something to be said about a player that can create a stop and, an unsuccessful play, create an unsuccessful play for the offense, well, even if it's not a negative tackle for loss, and that's one of the things that you did well of a pre-draft process of showing him being able to get the running back on the edge for just a 2-yard gain on 1st and 10. That is who he is. So I don't see how anybody can't be optimistic about his rookie season as a whole, and especially how he finished.
Yeah, he is a successful run stopper. That's the type of run defense he plays, even if the tackles for loss and those numbers aren't the gaudiest. So I will say this: I hope they blitz him more next year because he was really effective with that in Michigan. He didn't blitz a whole lot this year. I don't have the final numbers yet. It's probably about 5% of the time, and I think that's an area of his game that can be utilized more.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we talked a little bit too about him, just learning better zone. Tendencies, and I think that'll come, more filmy studies and all.
Yeah, I mean, Butler said, he played a lot of man defense in Michigan. There were matchup zone defense in Pittsburgh, and having to read routes and be able to read and react and read your keys at the same time. It is a process, and that's something the Bush struggled with early, Seattle game in particular, but I think there was improvement along the way. I think this whole season for him was about improvement.
Right. I mean, overall, I don't know, how would you grade him? I mean, A-, B+? I mean...
Yeah, any of those high marks. I mean, I think just maybe an A-, B+, right in that range sounds about right.
Oh, I'm starting to see these tweets come up here about the Reese's Senior Bowl. It's that time already, isn't it?
I know. I've been having to really try to grind through some tape. I have an article coming up probably later in the week on Neville Gallimore. Are you watching any Neville Gallimore, the D tackle from Oklahoma yet, Dave?
Wait. There's been a couple of those clips, I think. Didn't you retweet one of those?
That's what got me into him. Yeah, I want to look this guy up. He's impressive. He's I could see him being a potential replacement for Javon Hargrave.
Yeah, I've watched about, I think, 6 or 7 plays of his just real quick, and it was all spurred by that tweet, I think, about a week ago.
Yep. But anyway, let's move on with the rookie class for the here and now. Deontay Johnson.
Is he going to be at the Senior Bowl?
He is, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
All right,
so
good.
One of the first guys I wanted to turn my attention to, really excited with his game. To go to Deontay Johnson again, I mean, a really successful rookie year. He actually talked about an article, went up on Steelers Depot today about needing to bulk up for year 2, which I think is pretty expected and the right decision because he's a pretty small guy that is going to have to deal with the rigors of a 16-game season, but it's hard not to love Deontay Johnson's rookie year.
Yeah, look, I mean, you talk about a guy that, especially the way he talked, I was kind of worried about him self-professing that I've hit the rookie wall a couple of weeks ago before the season ended and all. Ball security issues, which is something that I think, I definitely pointed out before the year started. A little bit of slippage of him for whatever reason in his routes. Just almost too good of a route runner coming out of breaks at times. But there were times like on that one safety early in the season where he slipped coming out of the route there. Now that was obviously still. I mean, Rudolph I think still got to throw that football, but little footwork issues such as that. Just an overall kind of understanding of what he's expected to do. I think he showed a willingness to be a blocker in certain aspects. That always jumps out to me when you look at Steelers wide receivers. Separation, man, that kid can separate. I mean, even in 7-yard territory, we saw kind of, what was it, earlier in Was it? I'm trying to remember what game it was. The Rams. I don't know, but there, kind of short areas where we really saw it on display with him, even against the Baltimore Ravens on that really the first completion of Devlin Hodges' career. That 12-yard, 7-yard out, if you will. Certain things like that. This is. Yeah, look, he looks like he could be the next good X receiver for this team. Looks as advertised. I don't think we got to see enough of him with the football out in space that maybe both of us would have liked to maybe have seen throughout the season. I mean, if you go back to a lot of his Toledo tape, they did a good job of some wide receiver screens with him and RPO type stuff to get the ball in his hand quickly so he could use his athletic ability out in space. I mean, that's not his fault there, but we saw him be able to stretch the field at points. We saw him be able to work in short spaces. I don't care if I ever see him in a Wildcat again. I have to admit that kind of stuff. And then obviously his abilities as a return man there. Ball security, I think, is number one issue with him moving forward, and just the nuances of route running and separation. We've seen him get on top of some pretty good corners this year, and with the who was the guy a couple games left in the season intercepted Bills
Trey White.
Being able to get on top of him, So I think he showed enough get some good cornerbacks this season that he can stack them, and then obviously made a few plays along the way. So he's another guy, and he finished strong too. I think a lot of the guys that we're going to talk about right now in this segment are guys that you have to be kind of encouraged about because they finished strong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bush is one of them. Johnson was certainly one of them. Yeah, I mean, the team just called him a natural when they drafted him, and I think that was an accurate assessment of him, especially as a route runner and a guy that can create space. And, my old saying, the best receiver is an open one, and the guys that can create their own space is a valuable commodity in today's NFL, and Johnson has that. The only things I would say he's got to improve upon is the ball security in general, and then, as he said, bulking up, getting stronger, because if he wants to be that open grass kind of threat as a receiver, he doesn't break a lot of tackles. I know he did a little bit in the return game, but as a receiver, didn't break a lot of tackles. I think getting stronger, adding some muscle, is going to be helpful for him.
I think as this look, we heard now we know. You go back and you think about the rookie mini camp and him kind of missing a little time and then moving forward. He learned real quick that football shape in the NFL is different than football shape in college. Mm-hmm. And he probably played from behind the 8 ball. Work behind the 8 ball with trying to get caught up in that all throughout the season. And I think it's a testament to him even. Look, I have no problem with a kid coming out and said, man, I'm tired.
Yeah, I appreciate the candor.
And I got to drink more water. And I hit the, a lot of people I think maybe would take that as maybe being too truthful, but I'm okay with him saying that, especially with the way he finished in those last couple of games there on top of it. So once again, it goes back to these as much as Mike Tomlin screams at these guys during rookie minicamp, boy, you kids better be, or out of OTAs, you guys better be in shape when you get to training camp. Some of them just got to learn. Most of them just got to learn it for themselves. Just how long the NFL season is, coming out of a long college season that involves the combine and all like that. So with him learning that now, I expect to see a totally different player. Or more conditioned player, I should say, by the time he shows up this next offseason.
You're right. It's hard to know until you know. And now that he knows, he's going to probably be able to improve upon that and be a better product, hit the ground running in 2020. Move on to Justin Lane.
My old man used to say, pigs don't know pigs stink. So.
There you go. Justin Lane didn't play a whole lot this year. Didn't play a single snap on defense. I think 90-something on special teams. Work as a gunner overtook Artie Burns for the last 6 weeks of the season. Got a hat. Not a lot to learn from. I thought his camp was kind of rough. I still had concerns about him coming out of Michigan State, and I thought training camp kind of validated some of those issues with long speed and stiffness. But obviously, we just didn't learn a whole lot about Justin Lane in year one.
Yeah, very much an incomplete. But I think the positive that you can take away from him was what did Kevin Colbert say about him a couple of times early on in the season? You remember?
I don't actually jog my memory.
Remember him saying you got to get stronger
Okay. Yep.
and more physical. Well, I think, I mean, obviously we don't have any defensive tape on him and all, but special teams, he became somebody to watch on special teams a little bit there. So and I know it's not a huge thing a huge accomplishment by overtaking Artie Burns, later in the season. But at least he did that, okay? And he did show up a couple of times on the special teams tape, so there is that. So if if you want to look at him, and really it is an incomplete with him, but I think if there's anything to talk about him in a positive, it's the fact that he did get him in a position where he was trusted to get a helmet late in the season. So now we'll have to see how he picks up. I mean, there's no way you can make any long-term or short-term determinations on him right now. And look, if everything goes well at the start of 2020 anyway, he's not going to be on the field.
Right, yeah, that would be the goal. Remember that first preseason game this year for Lane where he had to start because all the injuries and he got toasted? But he ended the year, better than how he started it, and that's what you want to look at for a rookie. And I thought he played well as a gunner and on special teams. That was a solid tackler, better than I expected, and just played better than what I hoped for.
What do you envision our talks about him being this time next year?
After 2020, after another season?
Right.
I don't know. I mean, you would think at that point he's played some defense. Injuries happen. He gets on the field in some capacity. My concern is that we'll be talking about those issues I saw at Michigan State, the lack of long speed, the stiffness, and trying to man press up and kind of a man turn. So I that's my worry with him. That hasn't changed, but I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, this is a guy that should get a lot of burn during the preseason, we would think.
Oh, yeah, he'll play a ton in 2020. To go on to Benny Snell, I know we talked about him pretty extensively with the running back position we covered earlier in the show. So any other just initial, or I guess I should say final thoughts on Snell in his rookie season?
I mean, look, a couple of explosive plays in there. That something that he didn't produce a lot of there per percentage of runs that he had at Kentucky there. Some physicality. Look, we knew going into the season that this is a guy that's not afraid to eat up grass and do the things that you want to see as a pass protector. Still probably trying to figure a lot of that out as far as who he's got and stuff like that. But it was disappointing to see him lose some snaps in some games kind of in that middle of the season with the injury. But those kind of things happen, obviously, at times. I think more than anything, he ended strong. And once again, it would have been interesting to see a couple of games there at the end of him maybe being able to carry the load.
Mm-hmm. The word I would use to describe his season is just kind of readiness. He was always ready to be a 20-plus carry a game kind of guy, even if that only happened once or twice. Ready right off the injury, which was super impressive. To miss 3 games your rookie year with a meniscus, you have a knee scope, get under the knife, and to come back and just feel like he's ready to go the moment he touched the field was impressive. Like Jalen Samuels got a little bit better as the season went on, removed from the knee surgery that he had, but he wasn't right coming immediately back, and Snell just seemed right away, and that to me was really impressive, and I think pretty uncommon.
Right. He was a special teams force right out of the chute. I thought someone you could kind of depend on right from the get-go. Shows a physicality and all like that. I'd like to see him not talk so much like Ricky Henderson moving forward, but I think he learned real quick that the media in the NFL is a little bit different than media at Kentucky there. So once again, another player that I thought finished the season strong. And really, he started it not bad either, even though most of obviously was on special teams there. But a guy that I thought stuck out, especially in kind of the final couple of games there. More positive than negative.
I will say this: the only guy that likes saying Benny Snell football more than Benny Snell is Mike Tomlin. So I
Right.
think he's all right with it. But I think Snell did recognize that he kind of cooled off and backed away from that kind of stuff and just let his play do the talking, and his play was impressive. Zach Gentry in the fifth round. I know that's a pick neither of us really loved. We'll call it whenever the draft selection was made, and guy that didn't play a whole lot, like Lane, not a whole lot to go off of. Caught his first catch, a third down conversion late in the season. Just don't know a lot about him, but obviously he's not going to be the solution to the tight ends issues that persisted in 2019.
It really doesn't look like it, does it, Alex? I mean,
Nope.
It's too bad they couldn't have got the kid out of LSU.
Right. Moreau had a really good year in Oakland.
I mean, what a shame, uh, there's not a lot of tape on him. What did he dress for? 3 games, Gentry?
Yeah, I think 50 snaps on offense is what he came in at.
And it's just hard. It's just hard to. It's not pretty. A lot of it's not pretty. I'll tell you that.
Mm-hmm. But rookie tight end, it's never really pretty for that position. I'll grant him that.
Right. I mean, you're expecting this guy. We said right from the get go, his ceiling's probably Jesse James. At best, Jesse James when he left. And there's right now. I mean, we'll obviously things can change, but I mean, there's nothing. There was nothing this year to have us believe that he'll reach Jesse James when Jesse James left. That kind of. Hopefully, we're wrong. I mean, look, but there's nothing there right now.
Yeah, just not a whole lot of information there. So we'll see how he looks in camp. In year 2, you would reasonable to expect some improvement, but we'll see how he looks. Sutton Smith in the 6th round, obviously was a potential preseason darling, never materialized, got hurt, came back on the roster on the practice squad midway through the year, and just didn't work out. And I'm not shocked by that, to be honest with you.
I'm not mad at the pick. I mean, I understood the pick for what it was. At no point, though, did I really think, look, I went through every one of it. I broke down every one of his sacks, and had that up on the site and all like that as well, too. Even so, we knew right from the get-go, at least you and I did, this guy's going to have to make it out as a special teamer.
Mm-hmm. And I thought he would show that, but obviously the injury really limited him and didn't give him that chance.
Right, and once he lost that aspect of it, the guy's just too small, to be an edge, to do everything that an edge is supposed to do in the NFL there. So I'm not surprised how things worked out for him. I understand the pick, especially look if you were able to get a special teams ace out of a 6th round pick. Had he become that, then fine. If you got a couple seasons out of him being a core special teamer, good on you. But that just didn't materialize, and health had a lot to do with it.
Yep, and that was part of the whole day 3 oops all linebackers draft philosophy this team went with Gilbert III, who is becoming that special teams kind of guy. But before we get to UG3, let's talk about Isaiah Buggs. That's another guy that I thought ended the season on a high note with a really solid game against Baltimore, even though he only played just 7 snaps. And I thought he just showed a technician and just showed a really good baseline level for a rookie season.
I haven't looked at him as much as I should have at this point. I will, obviously. I mean, I looked at your post. No, I haven't paid as close attention to him in several weeks as I should. I know there was a little bit of a period there where you're thinking, all right, you can't make plays when you're on the ground. All right. Mm-hmm. But I mean, really overall, I mean, how many plays was that? 2?
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't playing a lot.
Because he didn't play a lot overall, but it just so happened to one time I look at him, on a ground and play. But then you circle back, and then he does a couple things. I think I talked about this on a podcast the other day. You're able to avoid the trash and help and kind of bottling up one of those runs. Was it against the Jets or the Ravens? I forget which one it was there. But regardless, he is a guy that you go back. I remember looking at his sack reel from Alabama. A guy that you would kind of expect to give you a little something as a pass rusher there, and you're kind of wondering how he would do against the run. But I think in the kind of the looks that you've given us so far, I think he made progress in that area in a limited amount of snaps. So once again, we're dealing with a guy that's really, incomplete at this point based on the amount of film that he had last season. But again, a guy that I think finished strong after, once you start to get a helmet and get on the field a little bit there. So where does he fit long term in this? I think it's still kind of hard to project there. I mean, I don't think you're going to have him come in and be the next Javon Hargrave, right?
That's what I was going to ask you, is kind of his role for 2020. I get a lot of people asking me, can he replace Hargrave? I mean, how do you see him in relation to the Steelers rotation next year?
I mean, can they get him to bulk up a little bit more, and would he lose some of he's always going to kind of be that kind of tweener type, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, that was the issue with him, trying to find out where he fit in the NFL.
I mean, is he a 1, a 2, a 3, or 4, or 5? I mean, he's not so much a 1, I don't think. So
I view him as a 3 tech and a 4-eye inside shade of the tackle. Here's my rough idea of how I would go about replacing Javon Hargrave. You're going to have to draft or sign a low level, but probably draft just kind of a more classic run stuffer, and that's how you attack the nose tackle aspect to it. And then I know that nose tackle is not going to give you much in the passing game, so then you're going to use the rotation of Hayward, Tuitt, Alulu, and now Buggs to replace what Hargrave gave you as a pass rusher in sub-package football. So that's the way I would do it. I think it's hard to replace Hargrave with just one guy because that skill set is pretty unique and hard to find. But I think what Buggs offers as a pass rusher, and then as a true nose tackle, you find someone in the draft that can do that. That might be the best approach.
Are we going to see this team have to go back to more base here with is there enough evolution of the fullback coming back in the NFL that more teams are going to kind of look at maybe what the Ravens are, in other words, the 3 tight ends? But you look, you got to hand it to Baltimore, we talked several times. They come out and they're going to run it.
Yep, you can't stop it.
And there's not a damn thing you can do about it. Are we is there going to be enough of that? I mean, you're going to have it in your own division right now, with at least with Baltimore, and you would think that the Ravens would be smart enough to not come out and that. I mean, not Ravens. The Bengals are going to be smart enough to kind of with Burrow during his rookie season to have some semblance of a running game.
Yeah.
With Mixon and all like that, and if they don't dedicate some picks to that offensive line. Oh, by the way, that Fred Johnson didn't have too bad of a closeout to his rookie season, did he?
That one still hurts me, Dave. Still wish I really could use Fred Johnson in a Steelers uniform right now.
Boy, that would been nice. It'd be nice to have. Didn't they use him mostly at tackle though? But regardless. Anyway, back to yeah, I think you're right. I think it might take 2 to replace 1. Hargrave, it's hard to watch that kid walk out the door, but if somebody deserves to be paid this offseason, it's him, and you can't keep them all. But boy, he just exponentially the last 2 seasons with Hargrave, he really grew.
Yeah, and I will say, a lot of people said, Hargrave really turned it on this year. He was the same dude last year. Like, he had a really solid season last year, and I think, as you said, really kind of, turned the page in 2018 and then just continued that into 2019. But overall, yeah, your AFC North you're going to have to deal with Mark Ingram and Lamar Jackson, deal with Nick Chubb, maybe Kareem Hunt, and you have to deal with Joe Mixon. I mean, those are some really good runners. You better have a really good run defense, and you'll be playing a lot of base defense against those teams.
I mean, how much more can you get out? I got to go back and look at Big Dan. What's your overall thoughts on Big Dan this past year?
He's gotten better, but his better is still not very good. And I don't know what the infatuation is with keeping him. They may still continue to keep him. He's still under contract, right? He's
right. Yeah, he's going to be back in camp again.
Yeah, so he's not going to go anywhere. But I mean, he's not going to start. I guess he's probably going to remain in that backup role just forever. He's going to be 35 years old being the backup nose tackle, but he can't be your starter.
Right.
So, all right, Dave.
And the thing too is you don't play that. The guys that we're going to be looking at, defensive tackles. It's either going to be an extremely cheap free agent, and hopefully, who was the kid from the Chargers from a few years ago?
Cam Thomas.
Yeah, Cam.
Why are you going to bring him Cam Thomas?
Hopefully not a Cam Thomas type there, but I mean, it's going to be that kind of low level free agent if they were address a position or. I mean, because the amount of snaps on them, you're not going to go. I don't think you go out and get a guy like that in the second round. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to have to be a third or fourth round, fifth round. And luckily, because of the way those guys are used in the NFL, that's usually where you're going to get those guys, third, fourth, fifth round. Defensive tackles, kind of space eaters that could, that can two gap occasionally and all like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. To go to Gilbert the third now at linebacker again was playing well. Actually, the team leader in special team snaps before he fell to IR with some back injuries, I think back spasms or whatever the issue was. This is a guy that if you lose Mark Barron, you say we don't have to go add somebody to replace Barron. Gilbert will just elevate his role into a potential kind of LJ Fort-ish type thing in 2020.
Yeah, a guy that you just got to circle him right now and think, man, I'm really, really interested to hear your reports right from the get-go with him out of training camp. Obviously didn't see anything on him on defense outside of preseason, but I thought we saw a few. Look, he got himself up off the bottom of the depth chart during preseason. Had that nice interception. What was it? The Buccaneers game. And then kind of followed it up with some good work on special teams, and then you get into the season and was one of your top special teams guys. And I think you go into this off season and into next season thinking, okay, at worst here we've got our next special teams ace, and maybe at best, depending on how he can pick things up, maybe we do have that Mark Barron type player there. So it's hard to really do anything more than speculate with him right now because we just didn't see him on the field, especially in defensive settings and really only in special team settings. And then, of course, it's really unfortunate that the final third of the season was wiped out by him having back issue or whatnot.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was impressive. I mean, he had that. What was it, the field goal block against Carolina that kind of cemented his roster spot back in the preseason? And yeah, I think at worst with him, you can already tell he's a quality special teams player. And if that's what he ends up being, then that's pretty good for a 6th-round pick.
Absolutely. If all he is a more athletic Tyler Matakevich, good on you.
Right, and this team may be losing Tyler Matakevich. Right. Obviously, he's a free agent to beat, so that could be helpful as well. And then to round things out, Duran Gray didn't make the team, stayed on the practice squad all year, signed a futures contract. His camp, I thought, was, I'll call it nondescript, a big body. I think he started it okay, kind of got worse as camp went on, and then obviously got cut, didn't suit up, was on the practice squad the entire year. So he'll be back with an opportunity, though, because there's going to be some offensive line depth spots that are ripe for the taking.
Right. So another guy that, just an income. I think feather in his cap more than anything, he survived a year on the practice squad. So, that's kind of hard to do. not a lot of players are able to do that overall. So the fact that he did that means there's probably something there. But, I mean, look, we didn't see him play. But how many snaps did he even play during the preseason? Do you remember?
I'd have to look. Not a ton. And I know he's still listed as a tackle, but they view him as a guard.
He's a guard, yeah.
And they said as much when they drafted him, but
right.
The way they used him in preseason, he is a guard. But again, opportunity there with Foster's future, Murky, Finney likely to go, Fred Johnson gone. Duran Gray will have an opportunity.
Yeah, look, I think overall when you look at your first four, the fact that we had a conversation a couple of weeks ago about who's going to be the team's rookie of the year, who's going to win the Joe Green Award, and be able to have strong arguments for either one of those guys. In the story right there. I know everybody thinks every 6th-round draft pick should become this, that, and the other, but the fact of the matter is it just doesn't happen that way. If you can get production, right away from your first couple of picks, and then in year 2 get production from not only those 2 but maybe 1 or 2 more, then your draft to me is successful. And obviously, if you can get a couple of those guys to a second contract, heck yeah, But overall, I especially at the top of the draft, those top 4 picks, it's hard not to go into off season being optimistic, especially about Bush, Johnson, and Benny Snell Jr.
Yeah, I'm with you. Solid draft class, solid return on investment 1 year in. All right, Dave, a couple other odds and ends things to start closing out the show before we get to some reader emails. Bruce Gradkowski said and confirmed that he does want to be a quarterback coach someday. I think was a finalist for the Rams job last year, lost out to whoever they hired, and so he wants to be a quarterback coach. Steelers are open to a quarterback coach. Kind of makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Look, I how much experience do you want a guy on the job training.
That's fair.
Does just being a quarterback, if you stand in a garage, does it make you a car?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. I mean, he has been active as, I guess, interviewing for jobs. He works for PFF, whether you like him or not. He's obviously still watching and grading and evaluating the game, but that's a fair critique.
I don't. I mean, I don't know enough about what he knows to give a fair, honest opinion of whether or not he should or shouldn't be. I don't know how technical he is. I don't know how he breaks down film. I don't know how good a teach. You got to be a good teacher, and I'll give Bruce this. He looks like a substitute teacher.
He does. I saw him in algebra class.
Right. Everywhere, all the way down the way he dresses, he looks like a substitute teacher. Now, I can't critique him any more than that, other than the fact that he doesn't have experience already of being on an NFL staff.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things people say all the time. Well, this player played for the Steelers and he was great. He should come back and be a position coach. It doesn't always work that way. Hines Ward, I think Hines Ward's got to cut his teeth a little bit more. So, I thought, look, it's great that Bruce wants that job. Maybe he's qualified for it. Maybe he's not. I don't know. All I can do is comment on the fact that, yes, it does appear that he would like to be the Steelers' next quarterback coach. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I can't tell you if he's qualified or not. Obviously, he's a smart guy, played in the NFL, has some base level of qualifications, but would be a great fit and all that stuff. It's impossible for us to say, but I did want to note that because we were talking about quarterback coach with Tomlin's presser, and Gradkowski's comments now kind of match up with that. One other thing.
Who would have known that, during his playing days that Byron Leftwich would progress as quick as he has?
Yeah, I had no idea.
And gone from a quarterback coach to OC and all like that. I mean, you don't really know. I would have never guessed during Byron Leftwich's playing days that would have happened.
Yeah, I didn't either. So you just never know. And sometimes guys that are great in football aren't great coaches either. I'm trying to think of some examples that come to mind. None immediately.
Well, what about the Cowboys OC?
Kellen Moore. I think people like Kellen Moore.
Okay.
But I'm trying to think of who was a really good player that tried to coach and it just didn't work out. I'm just trying to think of a star player that tried his hand at coaching and it didn't.
Joey Porter.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one.
Cornell Lake.
Yeah, Cornell Lake. Okay, yeah. So there you go. So it just doesn't always work. Sometimes the guy that isn't a great player is maybe the best coach, and they're just different. They're different skills, obviously.
Now, one that's the opposite side. I mean, Kevin Green. That guy can get through to some people. I think
you'd still hire Kevin Green. Right?
I still would. Yeah, I have a feeling that he supposedly had that hip issue and all. He had to get corrected this past year and all. And with that, probably I'm assuming that he's on the backside of that now. I wouldn't be surprised if he shows up on a staff this next season. Heck, I'd hire him.
Yeah, got a lot of coaching openings. Dallas just hired Mike McCarthy today. What do you think about that hire, real quick? Do you like to hire McCarthy?
Yeah, look, I thought the Browns messed up, I think the Browns messed up.
That statement could apply to many, many years.
I think they messed up letting him out of the door. Now, how's the whole, McCarthy probably, I would have told Jerry right from the get-go as much as I could, which even Jerry would probably nod his head, but then you wouldn't get it written in blood. Just butt out, There's one thing that I absolutely love about what the Steelers do organizationally is, okay, you hear from Kevin Colbert after the season's over up until the draft and a little bit on into training camp, but then nothing out of him outside of maybe him having to release a statement or something, which usually is an unfortunate situation when that happens. And the other thing is Art Rudy II, and really Dan too when Dan was alive. You never heard those guys during the season. Okay, you hired these people to coach and run the organization. Let them do it. And if you don't like the way they did it after the season's over, then do whatever you have to do, or say whatever you have to say. I personally think guys that talk to the media throughout the season, like Jerry Jones, are a huge distraction to your organization. And I don't think you're going to change Jerry Jones from doing that kind of thing. But I really think it's a huge distraction. I think McCarthy. Did you watch that piece that's floating around? Has been floating around.
I saw you retweeted. Yeah, it was really good.
That was a great piece on McCarthy about how kind of bringing in Hazlitt and a few of those other guys and kind of having mock sessions and ways that they can self-evaluate and ways they can continue to progress as coaches. So I thought that was fantastic. So, I'm kind of angry that the Cowboys seemingly got a good guy there that I think is going to give them some stability, and hopefully, Jerry Jones should really take a good look at the way he does things. But I really think the Browns have missed out on a chance to have a great coach there.
Yeah, and I don't even know who the front runner in Cleveland is right now. I haven't heard any names outside of McCarthy be connected with Cleveland. So I think they've interviewed a ton of guys, maybe Greg Roman. But I think they missed out. But I will say in Dallas, I just don't know how it's going to work because McCarthy wants to do his thing with Jerry Jones. Like you said, he's just never going to – he's going to be Jerry Jones forever. It's just not going to change. And so I don't know if that dynamic's ultimately going to work.
Yeah, and that's the only thing I kind of question is the dynamic there. Because I do think Mike McCarthy is a good coach and wasn't there I thought there was some talk about maybe him going to the Redskins or whatnot, but that obviously didn't.
Yeah, and I think Washington was dialed in on Ron Rivera, which I think was a very good hire. I think they were dialed in from the get-go.
I could have seen it. I could have seen it gone either way with one of those two. I have a lot of respect for Ron Rivera. But look, you surround yourself with the right people, defense and all like that. I mean, obviously McCarthy's more of an offensive-minded coach than anything. Long and short of it, I think the Browns messed up, but that's nothing new.
Yeah, and the Steelers actually interviewed Ron Rivera back in 2007, nearly hired him. So, just a little food for thought there. Anyway, my other thing before we read your meals, Dave, I know you were asking about my Danny Smith feelings. I was pretty critical of Danny Smith last week in an article about Steelers' just continued kick return woes. I was thinking about it more this weekend. Do I personally want Danny Smith back in 2020? I try to think about it objectively and thoughtfully and for a little bit of time, and my answer is yes. I would like Danny Smith back in 2020, and here's why. Because I always, when I think about a coach, I try to go back to the question of, does he put players in position to succeed? And I still think that answer is yes. I know everyone else is going to say no, and that he's terrible, and all he does is chew gum, and you should fire him. But I still think just when you look at all the problem solvings, all the little minutia of special teams, he puts players in positions to win. Now, I'm so frustrated by the kick return issues. I wish I could have explained why they're so terrible. When I see the kick return game, I don't see guys that are not in positions to succeed. But I know it's been a problem, and that does reflect poorly on Danny Smith, and the buck stops with him. But overall, I look at this unit. Players are in position to win and to succeed. That's the mark of a good coach for me, and that's why I keep Danny Smith for 2020.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, fair enough. I don't think he's done enough, but I mean,
yeah.
I respect your opinion on that.
Yeah. No, I get it. And again, the kick return game. I mean, do you have any? I don't have any. I can't think of a reason why that unit has struggled as consistently as it has. Do you have any?
Look, I'm not going to pretend. I mean, you're going to be more. You study that the special team aspect a lot more than I do. I spend a lot of my time on defenses and coverages. Deciphering a lot of that aspect of it. I haven't focused a lot in the minutiae and return game.
Yeah. But it's been terrible. It's been the worst in football for 3 years in a row, essentially. And I wish I had a better answer for that. I know it'd be an unpopular opinion from mine, but I think you should stay.
And look, it's a lot different than seeing something and know, well, that's cover 3 and that was a blown coverage, or
right.
or quarters, or cover 7 and not gaining proper depth on a drop here, that kind of thing. It's so much harder unless you know, I think, the inside nuances of it, what all goes into it. I mean, obviously you can pick up certain aspects of certain returns, what the general philosophy is. Mm-hmm. And I mean, look, they've got some good special team. They've had some good special team. How much did they miss Roosevelt Nix throwing around furniture?
Yeah. Some, but obviously they had them last year, and the unit still sucked.
Right.
And so it feels like they've had a lot of different players back there, good players, and it still hasn't worked, and that is frustrating.
It's hard not to look past the results bias end of that over multiple years.
Mm-hmm. You're right. Yeah, I can't defend it on there, but I look at the other units. I think they've been strong. They've been improving, and that's where it comes down to Danny Smith for me staying. It's because those units have improved. There have been problems that are solved, and I think about getting Minkah Fitzpatrick free against the Jets to nearly block that field goal. Yes, he didn't block it, but the player was in position to succeed. So those are the things I always go back to. But I understand, not a popular opinion, but I wanted to give you a straight answer on that.
Like I said, I don't. I have no choice but to look at it as a results bias, and I hate to do it, but I have no, other than what little I do know about it, I have no way to look at it other than a results bias over multiple series, multiple seasons.
Well, I mean, that's fair. I mean, the coach's job is to get the unit to produce. And if they doesn't, it reflects on the coach. And 99% of the time, coaches get fired when their unit is bad, whether it's their fault or not, So I understand there.
Is he Al Everest bad?
No, he can't be Al Everest. Didn't Al Everest get fired on the first day of camp or preseason or something? When did he get canned?
Yeah, it's been a while ago. But
who have been some of the Seagulls' worst assistant coaches over, let's say, the Tomlin era?
Well, who was the one offensive line coach?
That's where I was going to go. Yeah, Jack McNell Jr.
Yeah.
Oh, God,
that was horrible.
The worst hire he's ever had.
I like Tom Bradley as a person. I think, but really, if you're having a meeting of the two Bobs with him right now, what exactly does he do? Going back even further, who have been some bad?
Scotty
coach?
Montgomery? I don't know. It was kind of a weird situation there. I like Scotty Montgomery, but he didn't last super long.
I think just too young.
Yeah.
To start with, I'm trying to think who else comes to mind.
Luckily, Porter. Is Porter a bad hire?
Yeah, I think he was all bark. There might have been too much friendship involved in there.
Oh yeah, him and Tomlin were super close. Their kids went to the same school, all that jazz.
You got to be able to, and I think some people will say, maybe Tomlin's too buddy with Fichtner and Butler and all, But make no mistake about it, Ben likes Fichtner. So
right. And Butler was always going to be the heir to LeBeau, no matter who the coach was. But yeah, I know they all were at Arkansas State together in 86, and that gets thrown around a lot. Anyway, I'm not
going to be surprised if we get in the next year and Ben's back, and all of a sudden how much smarter Randy Fichtner looks.
Yeah, for sure.
Because look, you got to have talented players, and push comes to shove outside the offensive line this year, and you had. Man, go back and look at it. How many games you had you thought James Conner would be your starting running back, and how quickly he exit games, and then the games that he missed, the games that Juju missed. You had a very young receiver in Deontay Johnson trying to find his own throughout the season. Like it or not with James Washington, is he ever going to be a guy that we're talking about being a premier top wide receiver in the league?
Probably not.
Look at the tight end situation. Boys, you want to talk about a very disappointing group, position group overall, tight end, this year. Top to bottom. Then, shuffling in all those backs this year. And then, of course, you get down to, an undrafted rookie quarterback out of Sanford. That's Sanford, not Stanford. It's no wonder they had the issue. What I want to do one time is probably get Charlie Batcher, even Bruce Gronkowski in here for about a 15-minute interview, because you and I touched on this, either last show or show last week sometime, I think, talking about how much really can you get when you're implementing your playbook from installs, from rookie minicamp on through OTAs and all. When you get into even training camp, Alex, it's how long or how much do they focus on running, offense there during the training camp practice?
Yeah, I'd love to know. I'd love to hear someone's perspective that's been in a camp, but I imagine the focus is, and Tomlin said it, the focus is on the season, getting ready for the season. They're not there to install stuff. And then certainly once you get into the regular season, it's hard to do much of anything just because limited practice reps and you're just focused in on that weekly game plan. It's hard to look at the big picture.
And how much can you actually get changed and quote unquote tailor your offense toward X player,
It's really tough, especially obviously a quarterback.
And that's what I would like to get some perspective from a Batch or from a Bruce Gurkowski. Now, you go back to a couple of things that both Bruce Gurkowski and Charlie Batch had to say about Mason Rudolph throughout. Now, how much was that being part of the Steelers organization? How much was that taking the company line, or do those guys absolutely believe that Mason Rudolph was developing fine up until say the game against? Because look, the wheels came off the Maserati at that point.
It wasn't even a Maserati.
What even a Maserati?
Toyota
Okay,
Corolla.
Datsun B210, whatever. You get the point though. I mean, because he had shown some good stuff up until through the Rams game, right?
Yeah, the Rams game was his best
progress.
Game.
At least.
And then it all fell apart from that Cleveland game until he came back for the Jets game.
So, at least, and that's another guy, look at how he ended. It's unfortunate that he couldn't have stayed down on the ground after tripping over B.J. Finney's foot there. I've been interested to see him actually playing that finale, against the Ravens to see what he could have done there. But, for what little positive there is with him, at least he finished on a positive note.
Right, yeah. Again, all fair context clues for Fichtner's season, but again, I think Fichtner also just struggled to elevate the players. But I would love to get Batch on the show and talk to him about kind of how the inner workings, how the sausage is made.
Who was it? Someone on Twitter just yesterday or the day before saying something to you that it's our job to, as bloggers and whatnot, what were they telling us it was our job to do?
Was it the guy that was telling me that we need to pressure Colbert into making big splashy signings? Is that the guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not the first conversation.
Boy, people give us a lot of credit, don't they?
Yeah, I wish I had that kind of influence on Kevin Colbert. I promise I don't, and that's probably as it should be.
If you listen to this podcast, you think what Alex and I or anybody else in the media says pressures this team into doing something, man. We are here to speculate and evaluate and analyze, and that's it.
Yeah. And again, Colbert's been super aggressive anyway. Like just the premise of that, Colbert's been as aggressive as almost any GM over the last 18 months. So I don't know what more you want from the guy.
All right, you ready to do some emails, brother Alex?
Yep, let's get some emails here to close out the show.
All right, running back nonsense is the title of this one from Jim. Hi, Dave and Alex. I wish people would just stop with the Steelers should. Oh, this is actually probably going along what you and I talked about.
Nice.
I wish people would stop with the Steelers should draft a running back in the second round. I don't care if you're Jim Brown tossing hand grenades down air shafts in a war movie. You're not. That's pretty colorful. You're not going to run the ball effectively without blocking up front. Not to be critical of your thoughts. Look, Jim, don't be surprised if they don't draft a running back at all, and don't be surprised that if Ben returns this and people stay healthy, that this running game improves. It was horrible this year. There's no two ways about it. There were some bright spots though, but I think as Alex and I talked, you got to have more of a distinct plan. I would like to see the schemes, for running these 14 straight, 17 straights all the. They didn't run damn near enough power for me. And maybe if you get Filer in there, a guy that can move, maybe you become a little bit more ambidextrous. Or as who is the basketball player? Of course, you do know I'm amphibious. Whatever the word you want to call it, wherever you're able to go both sides. That's what they need to be able to do more of. I'd like to be able to see more pin and pull stuff. I think they've got to do a better job in the running game of creating lanes for running backs.
Yeah, I'm with you. And Dave, our club has grown by one. We have 3 guys now in the don't draft a running back. It's us and Jim now. It might be the only people out there, but I again, I get some of the idea, but I just don't know in practice if it would work. And then I fall back on, even if you reject all the ideas about the guys that are in the room now, the running back position and how devalued it is and how you don't have to invest so heavily in the position, it tells me that you can wait on a running back.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we'll see when we get on, deeper into the offseason. But as we sit here right now, I'm not going to be shocked if they don't draft a running back at all. Thanks for the email, Jim. Brett Nah writes in, was listening to a Friday podcast, loved discussion about drafting a number 1 tight end early and signing a nominal number 2 like Jesse James. Totally agree, and I hope they consult Dave on who the guy should be. Look, I like tight ends. I miss on a few of them occasionally as well too. But
not George Kittle.
No,
you were I think the first person I ever saw to be right on the money with George Kittle.
But look, I still think there's a place for the Mark Andrews in the NFL. And that's another kid that I like. I mean, I don't think it was realistic for the Steelers to be able to draft him, this past year as well too. But I don't know. I have a feeling you stand probably pretty close to me. I mean, in that second or third round, and obviously by the fourth round, they probably need to have another tight end on board here.
Yeah, it's going to be high priority, really, regardless of what happens with the decisions on Vannett and McDonald. I will say, though, I was looking up Jesse James more the other day to see if he really could be a cap casualty, and all the Lions beat guys are saying no just because it's going to cost more to cut him. So I guess that kind of poo-poos my idea of Jesse James circling back to Pittsburgh. But wish it would, because I would love to see Jesse James back in Steelers uniform.
I think it's a 50-50 proposition with him. They could absorb some they would absorb some dead money there with him.
Mm-hmm.
I think the idea is to try to get 2 years out of him. But I mean, who were they? Who were there? Obviously, they had T.J.
Hawkinson.
T.J. Hawkinson there. Who else was there?
Logan Thomas popped back up. Remember him, former Virginia Tech quarterback? It sounds like it's going to be a 2-year thing. He'll be carried through next year and then probably cut after that. It just seems like he's going to stick for at least 2020.
And look, you can, technically, if you wanted to, you could carry McDonald on through the offseason.
He's got an option? When's that
due?
But
I don't think there's anything guaranteed tied to it.
Okay. That's just an option for his base salary.
I don't think there's really even the Steelers just don't do it. It's a carryover from the contract they did with they obviously did with the 49ers there. I don't know how much teeth that option even holds for him.
Okay.
I'll try to get with Joel Corey to try to see how much what kind of teeth that option technically has with him.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It doesn't, to me, on the surface, it doesn't sound like there's much. So in other words, unless they're just flat out, no. In other words, I guess what I'm getting at is I wouldn't be surprised if you carry him through the offseason and then make a decision down the road with him.
Yeah. But you would still need to draft somebody in case you decide, okay, we're going to cut him loose.
I would think so. And especially, look, if you sign Vannett more than the minimum, much more than the minimum, I got to admit, I still think they should have brought my boy in from the Seahawks. Would have been a better option.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it would. Yeah, Luke Wilson would have been cheaper, no draft pick. In hindsight, the better move.
Yeah, I think that's the way they should have went there.
Well, they got a Seahawks tight end. They just got the wrong Seahawks tight end.
Right. Yeah. There you go. Let's see. The way you're only making one change, not two, leaves a core 4 as a swing tackle as well. Let's see. Number 2, you discussed extending Hilton over Filer. Personally, I would much rather extend Filer to a multi-year deal, similar to the argument of Dupree versus Hargrave. Filer is an every down player at a position of less depth than Hilton. I'd like to extend them both. But if I'm picking between them, it's Filer. Would he sign a deal similar to Foster, $4 million for 3 to 4 years? The thing is, Filer more of a stopgap guy.
I don't know. I mean, I thought he was playing rock solid before that Bills game, and then everything just kind of fell apart. And I don't know if it was just the wear and tear of the season, his first time being a 16-game starter, or what. But I mean, if you want to go with Filer over Hilton, that's fine. I mean, they're both going to be tendered, and so they're both going to be under control. It's not an either-or thing with Dupree and Hargrave. They're obviously UFAs. So, I mean, it doesn't really matter, but I like both guys.
is Filer your long-term solution at X?
Yeah, I mean, I guess first of all, Steelers have to say where they want to play him in 2020 because
And we're not even sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It could be at left guard, it could be at right tackle. Who knows? And he still hasn't played much at left guard. If they want to kick him inside, so if they want to move him to left guard, you probably want to let him play out the year and see how he does there before you commit any sort of long-term money to him. So it's hard to say. And so I think you probably just don't do anything with Filer and just see how the season goes.
I agree, and I don't think you do anything unless you can do something with Hilton that's really lowers his cap hit and puts a little money in his pocket and still makes him cuttable after. And really, technically, I guess if Filer would take the kind of deal you want to, you could get that out of him as well, too. Yeah, I don't think you're talking about break-the-bank situations with either one of these guys to a deal that you'd want to get them signed to. And on top of it, at least it kind of secures you, if needed be, through maybe 2021,
Right.
But it all, it takes two to tango there. They're not going to drop a lot of money in either one of these guys, and especially if they probably can't lower the cap number of either one of these two guys on second round tenders. So, you're talking about $3 million plus for each of these guys right out of the chute. Can you do something that makes both sides happy, plus gives you a $1 million cap relief on each of them?
Right, and I will say I'm sure Hilton still wants a long-term deal, but at least he's going to be making some substantial money this year. $3-point-something million as opposed to $600,000 last year. So I mean that should help him out. And I wonder what he would even ask for. Like I think he would want a Kenny Moore type deal, and Moore got a pretty good contract.
Right? 6-7 million, didn't he?
It's like 4-year. It says 4-year extension, base value is at $33 million. So that's
right.
That's $8 million, $9 million fully guaranteed at signing. So that's my feeling is that because they're pretty comparable players, physical slot corners, good blitzers, all that jazz. So I mean, if that's what Hilton wants, then you can't do that deal right now.
Right. Yeah. He. There's no way you can do that deal with him right now. That's kind of money. Thirdly, he writes in, if the Steelers were to trade Villanueva, what would be a reasonable return? I'm not wanting to get rid of him, but with this tricky contract situation, you say he won't be happy at current salary. You really can't extend him without increasing his cap hit, and you don't have the money to do that. It seems to me we need to at least consider that possibility. Would you trade him if you could get a second-round pick? What's the minimum you would consider? I have a hard time to believe somebody would sign a 30-year-old tackle, that would then have you over the boat, over the side of the boat, with contract demands, with what he wants, with leverage in his favor. I just can't see you getting a second round pick, not having something worked out to him contractually ahead of time.
I don't even see the desire to trade Villanueva. I mean, the contract situation, the outlook's a little bit murky, but you can just sit there today, do nothing. It's not that complicated, and I don't want to bring in a new blindside protector for Ben returning off, elbow surgery for 2020. So I'm going to keep my left tackle the same. And Villanueva played well this year.
Yeah, he did. I don't. People just think you cast these guys over on the scrap heap and you just plug them right in. Plug the next guy right in. And
like who would start at left tackle? Chooks? You ship Chooks over?
I guess.
Yeah, no thanks.
It's just not. It's not a Madden world. You just don't throw these guys off. And look, the guy's been an Iron Man for you as well too. You're right. I mean, look, he might not be. I just view it. You know me. I like looking at the contract situations and what guys are potentially worth and all like that. That's why I have said that he's $5 million. To me, you're underpaying the dude severely. Will they get something done with him? Well, probably not, but I don't think you go off trade. And what could you get for him in a trade right now? A fourth rounder? Third rounder?
I have no idea.
Not having a contract in place?
Yeah.
Now, if it was, we want to be able to communicate with him and work out a sign and trade ahead of time, that's one thing. But, I mean, at the Steelers, you think they're going to do something that's going to put them at a disadvantage at the left tackle position?
Yeah, I just don't know what you could get for him, but I assure you they have no intentions of trading Alejandro Villanueva.
All right, Bryce writes in, hey guys, Bryce, couple thoughts. To me, Ben is the closest thing to John Elway I've seen in 20 years. Well, at the end of his career, Elway was still really good, but needing the running game to help supplement his play. This should have been the plan for this offense from the moment 2018 ended. They drafted downhill runners like Snell, had backs like Samuels and Connor that are best running downhill, and they had Rosie Nix. So that should have precipitated building this offense around whams and powers and counters and play action. If you commit to that in the offseason, then even Ben gets hurt. At least you look. I mean, we don't know how this offense was going to run with Ben.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he played 6 quarters.
And to think that you would expect him to come out and throw for another 5,000 yards. Look, they had to throw for 5,000 yards for a lot of reasons.
Mm-hmm. You talk about the field position game.
Field position, the defense. I mean, yeah, you had to move the football that way. And obviously the run game, the successful run rates were decreased in 2018 as well too. I don't think I'm trying to wrap my head around what Bryce is getting at. You lost Rosie Nix this year. What do you want him to do when a guy gets injured?
Well, I think Bryce is saying that the Steelers had that mentality going into this year. I don't know if I agree with that, but I think it's what he's saying. But he's saying they just have to reaffirm that with what they do in 2020. And part of that is true. There's a middle ground there, but this is not going to be 2004 Ben running play action at 38 years old. You're not going to see that. This offense is built around Ben. It's not built around the run game. You have to have a good run game to complement it, but Ben's still the straw that stirs his drink.
Look, I know you have to be able to run the football. Yes, you have to, especially in certain parts of the games. You have to be able to do so. You run better. I'll continue to say this. People are going to get sick of it as much as they get sick of me talking about just net yards or passing. You run the ball successful early, it allows you the opportunity to run the ball successfully late.
Look at the Titans this weekend.
And then look, if you have a good defense, it even helps even more in that aspect of it, because you can kind of take the air out of the football at times, if you will. But people wanting this to go back to Ben only attempting 21 pass attempts a game.
Yeah, it's just not going to happen. But I mean, I guess if I'm reading Bryce's question correctly, the pieces are already in place. You just have to do the same in 2020, because Snell's going to be there and stronger, and Nix is going to be there and healthy, and obviously you'll have Ben. So don't expect this team to go into a shell and go all play action under center kind of stuff. But yeah, hopefully you want to lean on the run game more, and you don't want Ben throwing 650 times like he did 2 years ago. I mean, that's not tenable.
He goes on to say, instead, Ben is going to spread football from the very start in New England, and this team was just not built to be consistently successfully playing that style like it could in 2018 with AB. Bryce, you might want to go back and rewatch that game, brother. Didn't they try to run early, Alex, and couldn't?
They couldn't do anything in that game. I can't think of exactly
their
approach.
They couldn't even short yardage it, could they?
Yeah, no, they couldn't. There were a lot of. Again, the idea the Steelers are going to be this 12 personnel team with Ben that's going to run the ball 40 times a game, which is not going to happen. You're going to be a base 11 personnel team with Ben, like any other team with a franchise quarterback. So point taken, you want to run the ball effectively, as you're talking about, as Bryce is talking about, but you still have Ben. You're still paying him that money. He's going to be the guy. And again, the progression of James Washington, Deontay Johnson, a healthy Juju, just to make that passing offense a lot more effective.
If you could pick up a couple of first downs in that game on third down situations and get a guy like Dante Moncrief not to drop a ball or two, I got a great still of it, and it won't leave my brain for quite a while. That throw to Moncrief in the end zone that Moncrief dropped, right, and James Washington grabbing his helmet.
Yep.
What the hell just happened? What point of the game did that happen in? I mean, it was still kind of a savable game. Look, that thing got away from him, make no mistake, and there's probably a good chance to weigh, pre-Minka that your defense probably. Look, you throw into Ryan Switzer. Ryan Switzer had a career high targets in that. Season high targets in that game, right? three targets, 3 receptions, 10 yards. Juju 2 receptions, 26 yards. I mean, that's first half I'm talking about there. So, I mean, they tried to run the football in that game. They just sucked at it. I mean, they ran 10 times for 22 yards in the first half of that game.
How'd you get those stats so quickly?
You just remember those kind of things,
Oh my God, that's crazy. They were just terrible that game. And again, the idea that they're going to go into a show with Ben and play, 3 yards in the cloud of dust, just not going to happen.
Okay, let's see if we got time for a few more here. People get caught up in the recency stuff, man. Chris writes in, hey, Dave and Alex, it'll be great January living in Connecticut and not having to listen to insufferable Patriots fans for once. Hypothetically, say the Steelers do have interest in Le'Veon Bell, a reunion, and a 4th or 5th round that gets him because Gates obviously wants him gone. With Bell's bonus money already paid by the Jets, would his base salary numbers fit in the Steelers' potential salary cap situation in the next few years? Do you think Steelers would have interest if it is doable? I kind of think he's lost what little burst he had. Thanks. Do you really want to invest in that contract?
He's making $8.5 million as a base salary in 2020, and that is going to be very tough to fit under the cap.
I mean, people say, you have limitations of the of restructures too, right? I mean, I guess people could say, well, just restructure his contract. Well, I mean, he's got, not only does he have a base of $8.5 million, Alex, he's got a $4.5 million roster bonus that's due and a per game roster bonus of $500,000.
Yeah,
that totals out to him having technically a guaranteed salary of $13 million and a cap number of $15.5. So if you throw out the $2 million prorated bonus that he's due, then you're down to a $13 million cap hit.
Yeah, that's a lot, and it's not a good idea to restructure contracts of running backs when they're about to turn 30.
If you could, because the 30% people just don't understand. Hopefully, maybe we can talk about this more on the Wednesday show. But I don't think people understand how much that 30% rule handicaps the restructure aspect of it. Did it make sense what I wrote the other day?
It clicked for me whenever you said about, because I was trying to figure out how that related to the CBA expiring, and then once you explained that to me, that's when it clicked in for me.
I mean, obviously, if you can get a CBA extension worked out here pretty soon, that would help eliminate that 30% rule because of the uncapped year. That's one thing. But I mean, you look at it, and typically you'd be able to get like $9 million from a typical restructure with Roethlisberger, even with 2 years left on his deal right now. But the whole math involved with the 30% rule only allows you to get 3-point-something million out of him. All right, and then it ticks down from there. I mean, there's some of these guys you max restructure, most of these guys you're going to get less than $1 million relief. Is it really worth to restructure them then?
Yeah, it's not going to offer much. We'll definitely explain that more on Wednesday. I think there will be some rumors, reports of Steelers having interest in Bell, and I can see the fit, but financially, I don't have an explanation for how you make it work.
All right, you can have Bud Dupree or Le'Veon Bell.
Bud Dupree.
I'm taking Bud Dupree too. I get the attraction. I get the question. I get it. But just from a cap perspective, I mean, would they take him back?
I think they would. But financially, again, that's still the obstacle that makes it hard for me to see that actually happening.
Man, that guy can't stay off social media either, man. I mean, to me, you're just asking for whatever you get to come. I think the guy still has another year or two successful in him and all, and you won't, until somebody shows me something otherwise, best blocking running back in the league. But I'm not so sure. That ship has sailed to me.
Yeah, and to be fair, I'm being a little hypocritical here because I just talked about the fungibility of the running back position, and now I'm talking about potentially getting Le'Veon Bell, and you probably don't need him to have a good run game. You don't need him to have a good run game.
Chris Welsh writes in, can you explain the Patriots' fourth quarter? I had DirecTV and therefore couldn't watch the Titans game on CBS Saturday, but watched ESPN after its conclusion. They were commenting how Coach Vrabel was once the student, but now the master, as he's used Belichick's knowledge of using penalties to chew up the clock. I heard that they took the clock from 6 to 4 minutes by knowing the intricacies of the rules, and was hoping you could explain it. Thanks again for all the crew does. Hope New Year treats you. It's about the multiple false starts in a row.
Yeah, I probably can't explain it super
because it being outside 5 minutes.
Right. So basically, just if you take a penalty on offense, the clock keeps running. Is the idea, but outside of 5 minutes.
Right. But however, if you take like deemed unnecessary certain amount of false starts in a row, then it's unsportsmanlike conduct.
Well, that was for the delay of games, weren't they?
Was that for the delay or for the?
Because I think they took a delay game and then they took a false start and like a second false start or something.
Wasn't there talk about too many false starts in a row also?
I thought that was for a delay game, but I might be wrong. I could be. I mean, I was kind of in and out of the game, paying attention to it. Either way, though, yeah, basically they were just taking penalties. They were letting the clock run, and they killed about a minute of clock. Belichick did that in the Jets game earlier this year. Talked about how that's a loophole. The league probably should fix that. Vrabel uses it against him. Belichick's mad about it. It was pretty funny.
It was pretty funny. Should they fix it?
Yes, but
yes.
It should be only legal to be used against Bill Belichick. That's how I would change the rule.
And the thing is once they jumped off sides, then technically the whole merry-go-round, I guess, could have started again. I don't know. Chris, I tell you, the best thing to do is go back and just watch, because who was the rules official? Was it Corrente or who did that game?
I don't remember. Yeah, it might have been Tony Corrente.
Was commenting on if you get, I don't know if you have Game Pass or whatnot, Chris, but go back, and I'll make sure probably between now and then I go back and re-listen to that whole kind of 5-minute segment as well too, and I think you get a good explanation there.
I'm betting there's some clips on YouTube of it, because I think that probably made for some good commentary TV.
There probably is that as well. Peter Falk's right. What you know who Peter Falk is? Do you remember who Peter Falk was or is?
No,
I don't. Still alive?
I don't know anything about him.
Colombo. Peter Falk actually died in 2011. Colombo doesn't ring a bell?
I heard Peter, and I'm thinking Pilot Pete for The Bachelor tonight. That's the only Pete on my mind.
Oh, Lord. Anyway, he goes by Peter Fox here. Spitballing ideas. What's up, fellas? Unfortunately, Duck couldn't fully fit the bill. Ha, ha, ha. He's got a couple of smiley faces here. But I'm sitting here watching the impact that Taysom Hill has on the Saints that led me to dig into this situation. He's coming up on free agency off of a 3-year contract for $1.66 million. He's a quarterback by trade, but a true Swiss Army knife. I think he plays all phases of the game. What you think a guy like that's worth on the open market? Do you think he's worth the look? Look, he's going to probably command a pretty nice little, because he is a jack of all trades there. And I think hats off to Sean Payton for finding a way to maximize that guy's usage. Do I think the Steelers will have anything, be able to go after a guy like that? No, I don't think they have the luxury to do so. But I think you got to play to a player's strengths. And, boy, Sean Payton sure managed to do that.
Yeah, not easy to do, juggling him and a Hall of Famer like Drew Brees. That's a good question on his market value. I have no idea, because you just never see a player with that skill set available, or really just existing in the NFL. So I don't know what it's going to be out of the Steelers' price range.
I mean, you're not going to use that guy a lot of times at court. I mean, it's going to be hit and miss situations. I mean, just it's going to have to be exactly usage just the way that Sean Payton used him, you know?
Right. But he can play some quarterback, and so like he's getting paid as like part quarterback, part receiver, part gunner. I mean, it's a whole combination of things. But it'll be very interesting to see what he gets.
A guy like that is probably gonna end up in New England.
Probably, yeah. You know, New England's gonna go ham on some tight ends.
One last one from Jeff Berg. Signing bonus. Hey fellas, I want to know how signing bonuses work. Can a team basically give whatever bonus they want to a player without impacting the cap? All your money is going to impact the cap, Jeff. For someone like Villanueva, could they sign him to a 3-year deal at $8 million a season, which I think was his salary cap hit, and then give him a $12 million signing bonus for 2020? That would basically make his 3-year contract a $12 million a year deal. Is that the way they could take care of him without pushing the cap hit up. 3-year deal at $8 million.
So 36 million, 3 years. Is that what he's outlining?
I don't know how he's trying to out 3 year. He says, could they sign him to a 3-year, $8 million a season contract? So 3 times 8 is 24 last time I looked.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is he saying to give him a $12 million bonus as part of that?
Yeah, is he saying 3 years, 24 million, and make 12 of that a signing bonus? That's kind of my interpretation.
I guess so. Let's see, because then I guess you're saying that his contract would run through 2022. Look, that signing bonus has got to be divided up over 3 years.
Yep.
All right.
It's prorated out.
All right. So what's 3 into 12? That's 4, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So you remember you got to keep his contract and I don't have that number in front of me of what his base salary would have to. In other words, you can't have the second year of that deal with the second year cash of that deal, not counting the bonus, the signing bonus amortization would only have to be could be no more than a 30% jump. Okay, and also here's another thing, Jeff, that I think you're forgetting about is you've got previous prorated money that's going to stay in 2020 when it comes to Villanueva. That's another thing that makes it tough. So right now, Villanueva has prorated money. Regardless of what you do with Villanueva, you've got $3.39 million in money that's got to go against the cap against him for 2020, just from previous prorated bonus.
Okay.
So we haven't even we got a starting point at $3.39 million with Villanueva in 2020, and we haven't done anything with him.
Right. So now you add in a new contract, and that number balloons pretty quickly.
Right. So now you're going to have to adjust his base salary to keep it in line with 30%, which good luck with that. And then you're going to have to throw in bonus money. So, Jeff, I think I'll get into this a little bit more on Alex. Make sure I get into this a little bit more on the 30% rule and all like that. But signing bonus money goes against the cap, and you can only stretch that money out for however many years the contract is. With the long side being 5, you can't stretch it out more than 5 years.
Right.
On that there. So, yes, Jeff, it makes his situation's really tough to work around here because of previous proration, because of it being the final year, because he's underpaid, and because of the 30% rule.
Yeah, I think Villanueva just plays out this year, and we'll see what happens after 2020, but I think it's just hard to get a deal done this offseason.
All right. Sorry I took up so much time.
No, that was good. No, he was. No offense to Jeff. I think maybe there was some misunderstanding of how the cap works. He was talking about signing bonus not applying to the cap, and he kind of lost me there. I don't know if I just not reading that correctly, not seeing the question or what, but it didn't make a lot of sense.
All right, what else? What else do you have? I think it's time for us to wrap it up. We successfully took another show that was supposed to be an hour and 15 minutes and turned it into 2 hours. You're welcome.
It is what we are best at. All right, Dave, we'll get back at it on Wednesday.
All right. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, hey, that's how we pay these guys. Go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button, upright navigational bar. Also, if you're interested in a ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com, go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button up top, and for $25 for 1 calendar year, you can have an ad-free version of the site. I'm long-winded. My voice is about to crack here. So as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.